Hello, everyone. Only 2 days to go now. World Cup draw, it is upon us. I've done a video a few days ago, a simulated World Cup draw, going into lengthy detail about all the rules of the draw, the constraints, the procedures. I'm going to do an updated version of this video. I'm going to condense it, and I'm also going to correct a couple of issues from the first one. So hopefully we're all going to go into this one knowing exactly what to expect, and we're going to understand why what happens has happened, because this is going to be the most confusing World Cup draw that any of us have ever seen. Let's get straight into it. So, 12 groups of four now. As you can see here, groups A through to L, we've got them color coded to start off with. Believe it or not, FIFA's decided to ensure that we can actually invalidate the draw as early as pot one this time around. Get in, you guys. So you can see here, the 12 groups are divided into blue and red groups, and further divided into light and dark colors. So that effectively splits the draw into quarters. The reason we've done this is new rule coming in this time around. Spain are number one ranked side and Argentina are number two ranked side. Assuming they win their groups, they're going to be kept apart until the final. The same principle applies to our third and fourth ranked sides, France and England. They're also going to be kept on opposite sides of the draw. The draw stipulates that if all four of these sides win their groups, the earliest that they can meet in the knockout rounds is the semi-finals. So that's why the draw's been divided up the way that it has been straight off the bat. So to start off the draw, we already have our three host nations in their groups already. The host nations are always seeded, and all three host nations are seeded as well for this draw. So Mexico will be in the first position in Group A, playing the opening match. Canada in Group B, and the USA in Group D. The remaining 9 sides from pot 1, those are our 9 highest ranked sides by the FIFA World Ranking, are then going to be drawn out of a bowl one by one and placed into the first available group in alphabetical order, but paying close attention to the stipulation that I've just mentioned. I've put blockers on the last group available for each quarter, as it were, so that we can ensure that we don't invalidate the draw this early on. So what I'm going to do here, as I'm doing it on a spreadsheet, is randomize the list. Each time there's a change made to the document, the numbers regenerate, and I'm just going to sort these teams out. Smallest value is the one that gets drawn, and we'll place them into their groups. So let's do it. So first team drawn out will be France. So we're going to place them into Group C. As they're one of our top ranked sides, that means we can also remove the blocker on the last remaining light red group, which is Group L. Netherlands next into Group E. Now Argentina into Group F. Again, we can remove the blocker on their side of the bracket. Next is Portugal to Group G. Brazil is going to skip over Group H because it's not one of our top 4 ranked sides. Group I for Brazil. Could potentially place them into the same quarter of the draw as Argentina. Could be interesting. Now England. So England needs to be on the opposite side of the draw to France. So that necessitates Group H for England. Belgium to Group J. Spain had to go into Group K, regardless of what order that it was drawn in. And lastly, Germany into Group L. And we've successfully navigated pot 1. Everyone, give yourselves a pat on the back. Let's bring over our sides from pot 2 now into the drawing area. Let's tidy that up. So, a few things to go over before we start drawing teams out from pot two. We're going to repeat the process, draw them out of the bowl one by one, place them into the first available group in alphabetical order, but there's a lot of rules that we need to start paying attention to from this point on. So, the first rule is geographic constraints, geographic separation. No more than one team from each continent, or I should say confederation, per group. The exception to that rule being Europe. There's 16 teams, so we can have 2 European sides per group. A new stipulation for this draw as well is FIFA's decided to introduce a pattern as to which teams from which pots play each other in which order. Up until now, it's always been drawn at random from this point on in the draw. Not any longer. So, for example, in Mexico's group, Group A, they're going to play their pot 3 opponent first, then their pot 2 opponent, and lastly, pot 4. For Canada's group, the order is different. It's pot 4, pot 3, then pot 2 in their last match. For Group C, they open with pot 2, so theoretically their toughest match first, then pot 4, then pot 3. And this pattern is repeated right the way through to the end of the draw. This pattern ensures an even distribution of our marquee matchups, and it's common in my last video, which I think is probably correct, because I'd had a lot of people asking why are the USA in in Group D instead of Group C. Perhaps that has something to do with it, starting off with a more gentle match. One of the rules that we need to pay close attention to in the draw is geographic separation, as I've said. No more than one nation from each confederation from this point onwards, so we can have geographic clashes with the South American nations in this pot. We also need to ensure that we create a scenario at the end of this pot where we have at least one group that has 2 European sides, or 1 European side and 1 African side. There's a very unlikely but possible scenario which I'll show you right now that could break the draw. These are our 5 groups, which are seeded by non-European sides. We've got 3 teams from Croatia, 3 teams from Europe. I'm getting ahead of myself. That's Croatia, that's Switzerland, that's Austria, and 2 teams from Africa, Morocco and Senegal. If these 5 nations were drawn into these 5 groups, then we don't have the scenario that I've just mentioned, and the draw has already failed. So by the time that we get to Brazil, who I'm just going to place a blocker on, we're going to check to make sure that we haven't found ourselves in that scenario. Other than that, we draw them one by one into their groups. So let's do it. That's Uruguay into Group A with Mexico. Morocco going into Canada's group. That would be a rematch from the previous World Cup. Senegal into France's group. I think that was the opening match in 1998. Oh, no, it wasn't. It was 2002 when Senegal won that one. Switzerland into the USA's group. Colombia into Group E. Austria to Group F. Australia to Group G. Japan to Group H. And Croatia. Now, before we do that, we're just going to look at the scenario that I spoke about earlier. Yep, we've successfully avoided that. So Croatia can join Brazil in Group I. Iran into Group J with Belgium. Last two nations to be drawn, so Ecuador to join Spain in Group K. And South Korea to play Germany in Group L. And that is the least complicated half of the draw out the way. Guys, give yourselves another pat on the back. Yes, if you're still with me. A couple of things to look at here before we start drawing teams out of pot 3. First of all, we need to ensure that we have our scenario adhered to. So by the end of pot 3, we need to ensure at least one group with 2 European sides and 1 African side. So let's have a look first of all for our 2 African sides that we drew out of pot 2. Morocco is in Canada's group, so that doesn't work. Where's Senegal? With France. So that is a group that we can highlight for our constraint. And there's 2 European sides in this pot that could potentially go into that group to complete that scenario. That is Norway and Scotland. We'll highlight them the same color. Let's do the same thing now. We're going to scan through these groups and look and see if we've got any that have 2 European sides in them. So we've got Switzerland in the USA's group, Austria with Argentina, and Croatia and with Brazil. So we don't. If we did, the same scenario would apply for the African sides that we have here in pot 3. We've got Egypt, we've got Algeria, Tunisia, Cote d'Ivoire, and South Africa. However, there's no available groups that would allow us to fill that scenario there, so we're going to ignore that. So we know before drawing anybody up, one of our 2 European sides has to go into Group C. The other thing that we're going to just look at and confirm is, again, our 5 groups seeded by the non-European sides to ensure that we have at least 1 European side in these groups, which we do. If we didn't, another thing that the draw has to look at is we've got 6 European sides left in the draw. So the last group, if none of them had a European side in them, which is Brazil's group, would have to be reserved for the last European team in this pot, and then the remaining 4 from pot 4 would go into the other groups. However, as that hasn't happened, we can carry on with the draw. Needless to say, the deeper into the draw we get, the closer attention we have to pay to the rules of geographic separation. We've got to look out for direct constraints and also what we call indirect constraints as well, which may not be quite so obvious to spot, but that's where you'll see a particular nation get passed over a group that they should have been able to go in because it would invalidate the options for one of the remaining teams still to be drawn. And I'll stop what I'm doing and highlight that for you if we encounter that scenario. With that being said, first team drawn, Algeria. Algeria would go into Group A with Mexico. That would be our opening match of the tournament. Direct constraint here. Egypt can't go into Group B. Morocco is already there. It also can't go into Group C. So that's going to be Group D. They're going to play the USA in their opening match. Uzbekistan in their first World Cup, they can go into Canada's group. So Uzbekistan will play Morocco in its opening match. Saudi Arabia, or Preferential Asian Qualifier number 1. Let's see where they go. So they'd have to skip Group C as well, over to Group E. Playing Colombia in their first game. Qatar, aka Preferential Asian Qualifier number 2, will go into Group F, along with Argentina and Austria. As you can tell, I'm not particularly impressed by the way that the Asian Confederation managed the final stages of qualifying to ensure that those two got in. Maybe a discussion for another time. South Africa also has to skip Group C. Group G is open for them, so they'd play Portugal in their first match. Cote d'Ivoire into Group H, playing Japan in their opening game. Paraguay into Group J, so they would play Belgium in their opening match. Here we go. We can finally fill our constraint with Group C. Norway will take position 3 in Group C, and we'll leave that group highlighted. Panama, Group I. And our last two teams. So Tunisia into Group K. They play Ecuador in the opening game. And lastly, Scotland will take position slot 4 in Group L. Let's just remove the highlight from that. We are nearly there. Now, when we get to pot 4, this is where it is really going to get complicated, and I can assure you there's going to be a lot of people very, very confused by who ends up in what group after they do the draw at this stage. So to make it easier for all of us, I'm going to tidy our tables up just a bit. Now, I've done quite a few practice runs of this, and I don't think I would get pot 4 right if I didn't color code the entire draw. It would take me at least 2 or 3 goes. So I'm going to color code the lot and we'll see what it does. So first of all, this scenario that we've created here for Group C with 2 Europeans and 1 African side, this is the only group composition that is going to allow us a valid draw when it comes to this particular playoff winner. This is the interconfederational playoff number 2 to be contested between Iraq, Bolivia, and Suriname. So that's 3 separate confederations. Suriname is part of the CONCACAF Confederation, just in case anyone's confused by the geography on that. And the rules of the draw stipulate all potential geographic clashes have to be prevented. So that means a group with no Asian sides, no South American sides, no North American sides. In addition to that, Oceania, represented by New Zealand, is also a pot 4 side, so they don't come into the equation. The only option that works is what we've got here, 2 Europeans and 1 African side. And as we've only got one of these groups, again, doesn't matter what order this particular qualifier comes out of the bowl in, we know exactly which group they're going into. It has to be Group C. Interconfederation playoff winner number 1. This one's not quite so complicated. Let's give them a different color. That one's being contested between Dr. Congo, New Caledonia, and Jamaica. So let's quickly scan through the draw, and we're going to look for groups that don't have any African or North American sides in them. Few options there. Now we've got 4 European playoff winners, and this warrants a special mention. It really does. While we know that all 4 of these winners are obviously going to be from Europe, the likelihood is that whichever teams win these playoffs would have been ranked much, much higher in the draw if we'd completed these playoffs ahead of the draw. This imbalances the draw, and it also affects the host nations, because there is a far, far higher chance in the draw that because of the constraints involving the European sides, that these sides are going to end up in the same groups as the hosts. Each group has to have 1 European side So if we look through these groups now, for example, Mexico doesn't have a European side left in it, sorry. Neither does Canada's. The USA's does. Argentina's does, and Brazil's does. So you got the likes of Italy lurking about in pot 4, the same pot potentially as New Caledonia. Ridiculous. And that constraint actually puts host nations at quite a disadvantage there. If there's going to be a group of death, I think it's going to come from a group that has a very strong European side drawn out of pot 4. You can see those aren't absolute constraints there. We've got 2 groups that have to have European sides in them. We've got 4 European sides there. Moving up the draw. These light green groups, we highlighted them because they don't have any African or North American sides in them. In addition to that, we've got 2 North American sides in pot 4, surprise qualifiers, Curacao and Haiti. We'll give them a green as well, but a darker shade of green. So they could go into any of these light green groups. In addition to that, there'll be extra groups they can go into. For example, Group G, H, and K. So lot of available groups for those 2 sides. We've got 2 African sides in pot 4. That's Ghana and Cape Verde. Same principle there. We'll give them another shade of green so that we can tell them apart. That's it. Now, in addition to the light green groups, Group I would also be available for them. Jordan is another debutant in the World Cup. They're our last Asian side in the draw. So let's colour them blue. There'll be various groups that they can go into as well. So, for example, Group D doesn't have an Asian side in it. Group I would also be available for them, as would Group K. And lastly, New Zealand doesn't clash with anybody in the draw, but there are so many constraints in play that it's just going to depend in which order that are they drawn. We'll see which group is available for them. So our first team drawn, Cape Verde. Light green group is available for them. So first available is Group E. Jordan will slot into the last spot in Group D. They play Switzerland in their first match. I'll just tidy up these groups. Now that Jordan are gone. So there's our first UEFA playoff winner drawn. So they will go into Mexico's group. That's going to be either Turkey, Slovakia, Kosovo, or Romania. UEFA B will be Canada's first opponent. So that's going to be either, where are we there? Ukraine, Poland, Albania, or Sweden. All of these playoffs, by the way, are being completed in March. So it's going to be a while until we know who these confirmed entrants are. FIFA 2, well, we knew that from the outset. They were going to go into Group C, playing Norway in the first match. Group F is available for Haiti. Haiti versus Qatar in the first match. New Zealand into Group G, playing Australia in the first match. I'm going to distract myself from the draw for a second, guys. You can probably tell by my accent where I'm from. I'm from New Zealand. If New Zealand avoids Australia in the World Cup draw, then Australia, you have my utmost support. I wish you all the best. But if these two teams do come together in the draw, the result of this match will be more important to me than anything that's happened in recorded human history. I just want to get that out the way now. That is kind of my dream draw, actually. Oh, and South Africa as well, familiar foes. That is, yeah, so Portugal, South Africa, Australia, Argentina. Why did I say that? Australia, New Zealand. That's the best group since Alice in Chains. Please, FIFA, if you're interested in rigging the draw, please make that one happen. That would be fantastic. Shall we carry on? I've indulged myself enough. FIFA playoff winner number 1. Light green group, so that's Group J. Playing Iran in the first match. Next team drawn is Ghana. Group I for Ghana, so they will play Panama in their first match. UEFA playoff winner D will be England's first opponents. That's going to be either Denmark, Czechia, Republic of Ireland, or North Macedonia. And because of the constraints on maximum of 2 European sides per group, we know who's going where from this point on. Curacao, despite the colour match, will go into Group L, playing Scotland in their first match. And lastly, UEFA A, the dreaded UEFA A, potentially Italy, playing Spain first up. And that's a draw. Let's recap it. Group A, Mexico, Algeria, Uruguay, UEFA C. Group B, Canada, UEFA B, Uzbekistan and Morocco. Group C, France, Senegal, FIFA playoff winner 2 and Norway. Group D is the USA, Egypt, Switzerland and Jordan. Group E, Netherlands, Cape Verde, Saudi Arabia and Colombia. Group F, Argentina, Austria, Haiti and Qatar. Group G, best group since Alice in Chains, Portugal, South Africa, Australia, New Zealand. Group H, England, UEFA D, Cote d'Ivoire and Japan. Group I, Brazil, Croatia, Ghana and Panama. Group J, Belgium, Paraguay, Iran, beg your pardon, and FIFA playoff winner 1. Group K, Spain, UEFA playoff winner A, Tunisia and Ecuador. And lastly in Group L, Germany, South Korea, Curacao and Scotland. What a draw. Completely valid, completely random. That's how it's going to be done. So I hope that everything I've just explained there made sense. More than that, though, I hope that you understand the actual draw now better for having sat through this video. Favour to ask of you guys, if you do see people confused online after the draw is done, I'd be honoured if you send them this way, show them this video. Really hope you all enjoy the draw. More important than that, I hope you all enjoy the World Cup. We'll catch you all on the other side. Thank you very much.